I am a full-time freelancer. I've been freelancing full-time for about 5 years now, 7 years in total, 2 years on the side before that. I had a full-time job before, and then I was freelancing on the side, eventually moved full-time. From a content creation point of view, I have a website called Study Web Development where I pretty much help web developers, web designers become freelancers, and I share some articles and resources there.
Hey everyone, this is your host Sanskar, and you are listening to the Developers Café podcast. In this episode, I'm in conversation with Kyle Prinsloo.
Hey Sanskar, I appreciate you having me, and I'm really looking forward to this. I'm doing well, and I hope you're doing well as well.
We talk all things about freelancing, how to get your first clients, how to approach them, how to price yourself, what technologies to know. So if you're a web developer looking to start freelancing, make sure to watch this one completely. Timestamps are given, so feel free to move around. Before we begin, like and subscribe, and as you always do, enjoy this one. Kyle, I've been following you on Twitter for quite some time, and I'm really curious to know when and how did you start your freelancing journey?
Yeah, so I started in 2015, in December 2015, and I was working a marketing job at the time. I was there for in total for 3 years. The only problem is my wife was living with me at the time. She's from India, as you are, and she had some visa issues. So we were struggling financially, so she couldn't work, and it was just me earning. And eventually our debt just started to increase. So that sort of forced me in a way to look for a side income. And as I was looking, about what to do, eventually it came on to, I've got marketing knowledge. Okay, let me combine that with web development, web design knowledge, and then, sell that as a service. And I got started on Fiverr at first, and that did pretty well. Eventually, after a year, I was matching my full-time salary on the side with freelancing, getting clients. And soon after I left that to freelance full-time, and that was 2017. And since then, the freelancing business has grown quite significantly, and I've learned a lot, through this process. I'm still learning, so it's been an awesome journey.
When you are starting your freelancing journey, it can be very difficult to get those first few clients. But there were some things which Kyle did very differently, which I believe helped him to stand apart from the crowd.
Yeah. So initially, what I did was I didn't go the traditional route where I was just selling web development services, because I think that market is extremely saturated. Not to say that it can't work, but I just had to think look, I need clients ASAP. How am I going to get it? So what I did was, first things first, with a bio, I had to get reviews. So in the past, I've done some work, some random things for my mom, my brother, asked them to leave a review for me. So I got 2 5-star reviews, thankfully. and then what I did was I paid this guy for an animation, $80. And I remember clearly it was $80 because it was a lot of money for me at that time. And he created this awesome intro animation, because I'd noticed that a lot of people only had pictures, and I thought the video would help me stand out. But here's where it gets a little bit interesting. I did not sell, as I mentioned, web development services. What I sold was a website analysis report, where I would, where let's say someone would give me their website, and then I would create a 2 to 3 page PDF document. And then I would give my feedback on suggestions on what they could do to improve, their website. And I sold that for $5. Eventually, I actually got a client. And this is where it gets incredible. So this client, what I did, I really thought about this before I got started. I think a lot of people, just start and don't really know what they're going to do. That's maybe why it doesn't work out. But I was quite strategic right from the beginning. So this client, what I did was I tried to over-deliver. So I would send him my proposal, proposal with the suggestions, made my $5, $4 after fees. And here's where it gets, where I think there can be some takeaway for the watchers or listeners, is I upsold the client. So once I delivered the proposal for $5, I said, these are my suggestions. If you would like me to design a wireframe of my suggestions, I'll do it for $100. And just bear in mind, I did not have good skills. I just designed on PowerPoint, but it still was decent. So that was $100. Okay. He said yes. So I submitted it. But guess what? I upsold him again. And I said, if you would like me to code this website or make it for you, this wireframe, I'll charge you $1,000. And he went ahead. And so the point is from $5 to $1,000, But here's where it gets awesome. That same year, he did 8 websites with me. So I signed a deal with him for 8 websites because he had different businesses. Again, that's $1,000 each. I worked on that. And where it gets awesome is he signed $1,000 marketing retainer with me to help him get results for the website, because this is what I love. Sanskar, tell me if I'm going on a side tangent, but this is what I love about freelancing, and when you combine marketing services with website development or web design services, because you can give your client a good website, which is great, but to avoid the valley income, up down, I always suggest getting recurring income.
True.
So how do you do that? I suggest selling marketing services, and so now you give the website, but now you want the website to get results. That's your gap. That's what you can provide, that service. So he was my very first client, and amazingly still with me today. So this is about 7 years, and we've done various different things together. He's given me referral clients and all of that, and he's just an awesome guy. So that was my beginning stage on getting my. I did some small things here and there, but I would say that's my.
If you want to start freelancing, then another major thing which can come across your mind is, what do I need to know? Do I need to know React? Do I need to know JavaScript? So here's what Kyle had to say.
Yes, good question. I actually literally just tweeted something like 15 minutes ago, and I said something. Maybe I can actually just get this for you. So I said, I don't know JavaScript, but I do pretty well as a freelancer. The highest paid freelancers I know hardly know how to code. Programming knowledge does not equal freelancing success. And to answer more directly with your question, yes, all you need to know is how to make websites. You don't need to know how to code. Coding is beneficial, but it's not a requirement. So a lot of people these days, you must remember, it depends what your goal is. If your goal is to get a job, sure, I would recommend the usual JavaScript, React, and all of that stuff. If it's to freelance, if it's to earn a side income or full-time income, I would not recommend it. I would recommend maybe HTML and CSS. That's always good and helpful. But even that is not a requirement. I mean, you've got plenty of successful freelancers, 6-figure, 7-figure freelancers who just have WordPress knowledge. Or what's gaining popularity now is like Editor X, which we're shifting as well a lot of things to Editor X, which is like a no-code, drag and drop platform you can create amazing websites from. So just to wrap it up, the short answer is no, you do not need to know those skills if you want to become a freelancer.
Kyle, you mentioned previously that your first client is still with you and he has worked various projects with you. So I want to know, if you're a freelancer starting out and you're getting your first few clients, so how should you approach them? How should you interact with them to make sure that they stick with you for a longer term, not just for the one single project?
Yeah, great questions. So if you're asking for like client retention, how to sort of keep the client on board, how to keep them happy, I think it starts with the fundamental underlying core, which is get the client results. So if you can get your clients results and deliver professional service that is, I would say, 80%, of it. The rest comes down to, I would say, communication and sales skills, maybe some negotiation skills. So let's just call that soft skills, because soft skills can only get you so far. But if your work is bad, no one's going to refer you, and it's not going to work. I mean, you can upsell as much as you want. So I think phase one, improve your skills. Just be able to create a decent website. It doesn't have to be perfect, especially when you start, because if you're starting out, your main issue is people want to create the perfect website. They want to know everything in detail. But if that is your mindset or attitude going into it, you're going to procrastinate for a very long time. Mm-hmm. So just get good enough, create a good website, deliver the website. Now you need to upsell the client, keep upselling. I mean, even I do it all the time. I mean, this month I had 2 upsells from my clients, approved. So I keep upselling clients all the time, and just communicate, go the extra mile. What I do is, even for my smaller clients, on their birthdays or some occasion, I would send them a gift, a box of chocolate or some wine or, something. And it really goes a long way. I think it shows appreciation, number one. And I think it builds that loyalty, because think about it, Sanskar, I mean, in the space of freelancing, you want to stand out, but small different things, of standing out. And I think buying a gift, communicating, I mean, for example, let's say you have like a, like a Jewish customer or something, or client, wish them their Jewish holidays or something via email, a small touch. So yeah, maybe I'm going on a tangent, but that's sort of what I would say to that.
Now, if you remember, Kyle said that his first client's gig was for $5, but then he upsold him for $100. So now let's find out that how did he gather the confidence, or how he approached the client asking for a $95 rice.
Yeah, good question. I think at that stage I was quite naive. So it's almost like I just did it. I didn't know what I was doing, and it sounded reasonable to me, and I did it. And I think that I think this is where it's important. I've got the attitude where I'm not afraid to ask, where I'm not afraid to hear no, and then I will, adapt accordingly. So for example, if I asked the client for 100 and he said, "Whoa, you crazy?" I said, "No problem. How much would you be willing to afford?" You know what I mean? So I'd have that conversation, and then let's say he says 50, I would say, "You know what? It's going to take a lot of my time. You can see the value in it. Let's just settle in the middle. Let's do 75. I think that's fair. Do you think that's fair?" And you ask that question. And generally, I think they would probably say yes. I think it's more a thing of like, you just sort of wing it at the early stages, and get feedback, because the more you do this stuff, the more you ask clients, let's say you're pitching for a website and you charge, $500 or $300 or, $3,000. If you do that 10 times, you're going to get 10 different responses. You're going to be like, whoa, okay, that's interesting. Like 8 of those people said my pricing is too high, maybe I should adjust it. Or maybe 8 said my pricing is too low, so they can't take me seriously. So, you sort of adapt based on, the feedback that you get. But this is what I think a lot of people don't speak about, is the skill set, means nothing. I think I tweeted something out recently. I said, a lot of people want the blueprint. They want the strategies. But I said, this is as effective as eating your soup with a fork if you do not take action on those strategies to implement the blueprint. And I think that attitude of like being willing to learn, being willing to get feedback, I think that's extremely valuable.
True. Kyle, like if I talk about folks just starting with freelancing, today the market for web developers in freelancing is getting saturated. You need to do something different. You need to stand out from the crowd to get those gigs, to get those clients. So what would your advice be to them? Like if you're starting out, what should you do to get those clients?
Yeah, good question. So, sorry if you can hear some background noise. The neighbors are busy building, and then they just do it at random times. But hopefully, you can still hear me. Okay, so how to stand out and how to differentiate yourself, as a freelancer? I would say at the beginning stages, it could be a little bit tricky. I think as you progress after a year or 2 or 3, you really start to narrow down your focus. But in general, what I would say is it's good to start with a niche. So as you mentioned, it's a very saturated market at the moment. There's a lot of opportunity, but the reality is, you want to do well at it, and it's quite interesting. If you look at the people who do well at it, very often they have niched down to some degree. Maybe they've niched down by industry, let's say helping the medical industry only, or like plumbers, dentists, whatever. Or maybe it's via, the knowledge side. Maybe it's Shopify or EditorX or whatever on that. So that's pretty interesting. But I think when it comes to starting out to getting that first client, I always suggest, like, there's a couple of ways to get clients, right? So I suggest always starting out with your family and friends, just letting them know, like, hey, I can create websites. Hey, I can create, I can help you with your marketing or something. And again, the worst they can say is no, but maybe they've got a friend, who might need your services. So at least start out with that. The next thing is to try and use freelancing platforms. I know it gets a bad rap, but it still works. I mean, there's many people on Upwork, on Fiverr, who really do very well, and they've literally just started in the last year. So I think it's worth trying if you strategically set up your account and all of that. That's another thing. Then the other thing, I would say, in the long term, SEO is very important. So get a good portfolio, build out some strategic pages on the services that you create. Eventually, clients will come to you, but that's more long term. I mean, that can take sometimes a year, maybe even 2 years if it's a competitive market. In the shorter term, let's say between the next 3 to 6 months, I would recommend doing client outreach. So Twitter is very good and popular these days. If you have a nice account and you post, what you're working on, something relevant to your target audience, don't post what developers are interested in, because developers aren't hiring you. Post what potential prospective clients are interested in. And then, more importantly, do outreach. So what do I mean by outreach? You can go on Twitter, you can go on Instagram, you can go on Facebook, you can use email outreach. They call it cold email or cold calls. The point is to be proactive, not reactive. Just because you've got a nice website, I say, like, a pretty website does not get you clients. So you can have a good website if no one knows about it. Who cares? So be proactive. Start pitching clients. But here's the question again. Is there a way to work smarter and not harder? I think there is, especially when it comes to outreach. So you can imagine, I don't even know how many emails I got today, like saying, website designer, do you need web design services? And I'm like, no. Whereas if it's helpful and it's like, hey, I just went on your website, I noticed a few suggestions. Could I send you a video? Or, could I send you my feedback? Or via Twitter, I noticed this and this and this. Something beneficial. People are a lot more open to response, for those types of messages. So I think that'll be a good start. Just let me know if you have any follow-up questions or I didn't answer it properly.
Yeah. You brought up two very interesting points. Focus on social networking platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn. and also focus on freelancing platforms like Fiverr and Upwork. Now my question is, like, if I am a student, let's take my example. I'm a student, I want to start freelancing, but I can't get up all of my days. I have to study, I have to do other work. I can do it on the side. So what should I focus on? If I have only one choice, should I focus on the platforms, freelancing platforms, or Twitter and LinkedIn?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so I can relate to freelancing on the side. When I was working my full-time job, literally at night from like 6 in the evening, sometimes even to the morning, and then on weekends especially, I would work. But I was very determined because we needed the cash. So good question again. It's like which should you focus on? And I think it's a bit difficult because I think the nice thing you can do about the Upwork and Fiverr is once you've created the accounts, most of your work is done. Then let's say for example you've got 4 hours a day, or maybe maybe 2 or 3. If it was me, I would have created my account for an hour on Upwork or Fiverr. I would be proactive trying to look for gigs, especially on Upwork when clients post what they're looking for, and they're looking for freelancers, and that. Then I would apply to those jobs. So 1 hour. Then the other hour or 2, I would be very proactive in Twitter and LinkedIn on the outreach on that side, using the messages on LinkedIn. For example, I would use we still use it. You connect with someone and you send a message, so that you've got pretty much unlimited messages. If you send emails, you have to pay for that. So yeah, use that feature. And then Twitter, you just keep pumping it.
Very interesting. Again, Kyle, like going back to me working as a student, like again coming back to the pricing. Like if I don't have any prior work, so what should your advice be to me? Like how should I build my proof of work? Like I need to give the client confidence, like, hey, I have done this stuff. I have worked on these similar kind of projects, so I can work on your project. So what do you suggest? Like what sort of projects should I have in my portfolio if I want to reach out to people?
Yeah, good question. When it comes to portfolio, I always say that it's important to show what you've done. Don't talk about what you can do.
Exactly.
Because the reality is you want to think of it as a client would think of it. And when they see your profiles, or I mean your website, they don't want to see all of this stuff like, hey, these are my skills and contact me. They want to see what you've done with those skills. So there are a couple of things you can do here. Let me start by saying what I think you should not do. I do not agree with all these places or platforms or people who say, list your skill set, in a percentage, like JavaScript knowledge 73%, HTML 82%, and so on and so on and so on. Because I mean, no one lists, team play or communication or whatever in that type of way as well. I think it's quite stupid in a way, because it's not accurate. So I start off with that. Now the other thing I want to say is what you should not do is you should not create a JavaScript calculator or these little random projects. That's not good to add. What's helpful is if you had to create, let's say, a web app or a proper website, or something like in depth with the knowledge, but something that looks good. And there are mainly 2 things you can do here. You can either just create, buy a website domain and create. I don't want to say the word fake website, but an example website. Okay. So let's say, for example, you decided to focus on dentists. Like helping dentists, for example. You would just buy like 1 or 2 website domains, and then just create like a dentist website, 2 websites, and say these are the examples I could create for you. That's one option. But now what you also need is you need testimonials for added credibility and everything. And this is what I suggest. So it was a key thing that you mentioned in your question was when you're starting out. And I think that it's important to have the right expectations, because it's good to start small. Contrary to popular belief, it's good to start small, because you can always upsell clients, and that's a great way that you get experience, when starting out. The reality is you're not going to be charging these high amounts when you start out. So, sometimes it's, even recently, I think it was last year or earlier this year, I can't remember, we ventured into a new niche as an agency, and we didn't have any experience in that niche. So what did I do? Approach that niche and say, look, I'll create a free website for you in exchange for a website testimonial. And they did it. So now we've got the testimonial, now we've got that example, and that helps for convincing future clients. Because the reality is you need to think long term, because this will eventually do the selling and build credibility and help you stand out, in this crowded marketplace. So that's my answer.
Great answer. Kyle, you brought up your agency in this answer. So I want to know, if I'm an individual versus an agency, is the process kind of the same? It's just that I have a few team members, process is more, stipulated, or else is there something different?
Yeah, so generally, a freelancer is like a one-man show. Okay, agencies are, let's say, 2 or more people, but there are plenty of solo freelancers who work with a team. Maybe it's contractors or something. So, which one should you start out with? I always suggest to people, start out as a freelancer, but in the long term, perhaps maybe what you want to do is you want to create an agency. And then maybe even in the longer term, 5 to 10 year plan, you want to actually sell that agency. So yeah, that's sort of the thinking behind it. But there's no right or wrong here, because both essentially work well.